here's the full emotional existence of me.
Yeah.
And whatever that physical outlet is, that's what I would want you to find. And whatever tool to help you find that catalyst. Because when someone can go from, speaking about it to all of a sudden, like, let me show you.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And, I mean, you can tell I get riled up. It's just that, when I'm teaching or showing someone different modalities in terms of, like, whatever tool, like, hey, I've had this issue going on. Okay, let's try this, this, and this. Here's a pathway. Let's start here.
Yeah.
But then, almost like giving them, here's your assignment, but then watch them go through the process of elimination. Oh, wait a minute. If I put my shoulders back, if I brace here, and you've seen the wheels turn, and all of a sudden, it clicks.
Yeah.
The light goes on. And you see that point where all of a sudden they believe in themselves.
Yeah.
That, and again, personally for me, that's greater than any high I got off of any drug, off of any type of alcohol I ever had in my system, off of any type of one-night stands and all the rest. That is better than any of it.
Yeah.
And that's something I want everyone to experience.
And it's hearing that, because it says a lot about your personality, but B, we're talking about not necessarily lifting, but an exercise. So I think about it this way, because I too was told by a therapist one time that he didn't want to diagnose me as bipolar because he didn't want to give me that label in my medical record. It's like, okay, fair enough. But then they wanted me to do medications and things like that. And I did for a little while. And I felt like crap. It took me the longest time to figure out. I was an only child in high school. I have great parents. I've never had a real personal struggle in my life other than dealing with depression and me being my own worst enemy. So my fights with depression, and you talk about not knowing the full story or everything, there's things that my parents don't know about my story that I don't know if I'll ever share. Not that, I hate to say that I'll never share, but at this point in time, I just don't want to. It's a piece of my history that I just don't want to talk about right now.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. This whole mindset of, you have to talk about all your problems. No, really you don't. You really don't. You have to work through them. You have to work them out, but you don't have to talk about everything.
No.
It's, I totally lost my train of thought on it, but, it's talk about, I see so many people rush to medications to cure or to help with all these ailments. And I asked that therapist that I was seeing at that point in time in my life, because, I grew up athletic. I grew up playing sports. I didn't particularly weight train a lot, and I had gotten into it. But I asked the therapist in that session, I said, so let me ask you this. Do you feel if I exercise more, it'll help my mindset and help my moods? Well, it could, but there's really no evidence or proof that it's going to help. The medications are generally, a surefire way to help out. And to me, I'm sitting there in that, and it was a moment of, that just seems really odd to me. That just seems like an odd way. I ask a question, and then you tell me that there's no research or nothing to prove that it could help me. And, and by the time I left there, I had the impression that he honestly didn't think that exercising was going to do much for me. Fast forward years, and honestly, I use the gym as my way to release that stress, release those anxieties, take that aggression out in a creative and positive way. You talk about, working with somebody and all of a sudden something clicks, and you remember how that felt for you.
Yes.
When, I spent almost 3 years working on my squat, Patrick. 3 years of figuring out how to squat because it was my worst lift. That was my anxiety. I had anxiety because I couldn't squat right. so the OCD in me took over, and I learned how to squat better and better and better, and I'm getting decent, but it started to click, and I remember how that felt. And you talk about whether it's lifting or whether it's pottery or painting or music or something, that when that clicks, it is a different high. It's an experience of, you're proud of yourself. It's a feeling of accomplishment. It's a confidence booster. It's now a means to move on to another step. Whereas, if you're treating a lot of those with medication, you would never have experienced that moment of being proud of accomplishing something.
Yes.
That, you worked for. And so when I see a lot of people talking about anxiety all across social media these days, you can use it one of two ways. You can take the road of being labeled and allowing your disorder, your mental illness, whatever the heck you want to call it. I don't know what the PC term is anymore, but you can be labeled by that all your life, and people can say, well, he's got, ADHD or something, and that's why he is the way he is. And I don't buy that. I understand that those affect things. They actually come in and they alter, as well as I do, they alter your mindset. They alter your thought process. What might be a rational thought to somebody else, as you're looking at it, it's not a rational thought, and you've gone all the way around the farm trying to, milk different cows, trying to put it all together. And or instead of being labeled, why not accept the fact that, okay, this is not necessarily what you are, this is not who you are, this is just a part of your life that you've got to learn to deal with.
Yes.
Or it will destroy you. And for us, we use weightlifting as that means. We use the process of learning more and trying to educate as that means to, A, help other people, but B, it keeps us in check, I think, in a lot of ways. I mean, I could be, shooting from the wrong holster on that one, but I that's just how I look at it.
Yes, and I agree with much of it. If you think about it in terms of what you say medications would numb you, well, look what I was supplementing with.
Yeah.
They're both numbing the same issue because I was too fearful to face myself in that.
Yeah.
And like you say, come to the conclusion, like, this is only something someone else is trying to give to me. It's not what I'm giving to myself. You'll be around individuals, I'm sure, like where you've worked at, and there's probably others that are listening that, oh man, and they always bring up, man, my leg hurts. And that becomes their identity. They always thought, they make the sounds and they get up and they sit down. Like, I had an injury to my knee and my leg hurts.
Yeah.
But they can't get past it. Whereas, granted, this is the exposure that I had again to Eastern philosophy. That's actually something I enjoy reading about. Is philosophy, it is history, it is theology, all these things.
Yeah.
That if you truly want to be a complete being, you have to be complete. You cannot be a piece. If you are simply a piece, you are nothing. If you cannot truly accept the fact that this is only a circumstance that's happened to you, now you can either define your circumstance or you can be defined by the circumstance.
Yeah.
And there's always, you'll see the self-righteous going out there and preaching some kind of snake oil.
Yeah.
And granted, what I was taught is a very extreme setting because I was around individuals going through those protocols, like from Mark Twight and the rest, that Mark had a way of saying things simply as, okay, what I want you to do today in reference to the protocol that was needed for a very specific objective. It was never the workout the objective. No. Everything you do here is to a very specific outline, objective, goal, target, whatever you mean outside of here. You use the tools and facilities to improve here to get you there. Yeah. I don't care about how your time was in an arbitrary circuit. Did the movements, exercise, did the outline whatever it is, make you better so when you leave these doors, you're better than what you were and you're more prepared for what you were.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of And see, you can tell it's something I get very intense about. But
yeah, well,
I truly believe, with everything that's in me and all that I experienced, that if you cannot go to a point where you reveal your ultimate self in terms of you see the ugly facade that you've put on yourself and you peel back the skin. In other words, Mark would say, throw yourself as hard as you can against the wall and see what color you bleed.
Yeah, yeah.
In other words, expose yourself to yourself and see what you're made of. Like his first tenet was the mind is primary. It's like no matter what capacity you're at, you're only doing about half of what your body can do. You have to temper your body to bring the mind to the fold, but you have to exhaust everything physically to bring what's in here, your head, and the muscle inside your skull. That's what he wanted trained. It wasn't the body.
Yeah.
And when you can tap in that for yourself, all of a sudden these quote-unquote handicaps or definitions you've been given by others, they no longer matter.
Yeah.
You are your greatest weapon.
And that goes to a term that I hear a lot of people in the strength sports use, is empowerment or the confidence. And I always laugh when I hear people, especially powerlifters, say, well, you're lifting heavy and you're doing this to yourself because you're lost. Well, I think that's true to an extent, but I think eventually you find yourself, and then you find out that you enjoy that part of your life, so it stays with you. But to go back to the whole mind is the primary. With what we do, and even with what you do with all your reading, with the philosophy and all that, it makes you mentally a stronger person on all planes. Being something about being stronger of mind and body makes a person more confident. And when you're more confident, you're less likely, I think, in my opinion, to make stupid choices. Or if you make a stupid choice, you're more confident in understanding how to fix it in a lot of ways. And I think I see that a lot throughout the strength community is, I got started training because I had a divorce, or I got started training because I was told I was going to die if I didn't. It's something. And that's one thing I like seeing about the people with what we know is, yes, we all have excuses. We all have reasons, but is there truly a reason enough to, in your life, to remain being a weak individual? And I'm not talking strength-wise, but I'm talking mentally-wise, mentality. And I think if you don't have that strong mentality, you're not going to do the things like, even you going back to the whole LA experience. That was a strong mentality. That was a strong mindset that, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do this. And then being able to step back and understand what was going on, So, and I
follow
wish,
on that. I agree.
I wish. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, sir. It's the phrase. We all got dealt a raw deal. We all did, to some extent, whether self-inflicted, existential, no broken homes. My mother and father had a very ugly divorce when I was young. I wasn't even fully in America yet.
Yeah.
And so that whole dynamic back and forth, and how you could stereotypically say that can mess with your psyche as a kid growing up. Like, is mommy and daddy telling me what they really believe, or just what they want me to hear, so I'll love them more than my other parent? That. Believe me, sometimes the most manipulative individuals, at least in my experience, are the very people that help bring you into this world. Yeah. I mean, granted, and I've met some individuals who are parents who are genuinely good people, and you're like, you know what, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't regret any of it, because I had to go through what I went through in order to get me prepared for certain things. So all the stuff that happened to me, and again, I take responsibility. I made poor decisions.
Yeah.
But again, it prepared me for what was going to come. And so when I was there, I was truly open for it. I could be molded.
Yeah.
But I was being molded not for somebody else, but for myself.
Yeah. I got to a point in my life